A Friday matinee here on the ACC Network Extra as Littlejohn Coliseum hosts its first tri-meet as the Clemson Tigers, sitting at 30th in the nation, play host to Texas Women's University and New Hampshire. As we welcome you inside Littlejohn alongside the former Georgia Bulldog and Sydney Sneed, I'm Daniel Gilman. So happy to be with you. And well, Sydney, Clemson has one thing in mind. They are trying to get into that night session of the ACC Championships in just under a month. What are they going to have to do to jump up the 2/10 to get into that 4 spot starting here tonight?
Well, a tri-meet's a great place to do it. We've got all 3 teams going at the same time, so there's a lot going on, and it's a very loud and fun environment, so it's really going to prepare these teams for what postseason is going to look like.
Well, let's prepare these fans for the chaos to ensue here tonight, as the tri-meet will feature all 3 teams competing on apparatuses at the same time. So how does that prepare you as a gymnast, and how are fans best to absorb this content?
Yeah, well, like I mentioned, you're going at the same time. It's loud, it's crazy. There's always a routine that's going to be going on, and that's what the championship meets are going to look like. So it's really, how do you stay in your bubble and how do you stay focused as a team during those times?
So go ahead and handpick a few of the top routines that you are excited for here tonight.
I'm really excited to watch Bree Clark on floor. We have seen her just trailblaze through that event this year, but she's going to do the biles tonight. So something to get excited about for later on in the competition. No other collegiate gymnast does that, but it's going to be that double out with the half twist.
Biles will certainly shock and awe, as that will be the final rotation. Bree Clark, who has had 5 straight 9-9s over on floor. Meanwhile, walk us through Texas Women's. They're going to start on bars, but their top performance is going to be on vault in rotation 2.
Yeah, and I think bars is a great event to start on. They're going to be looking to be very consistent, go through that lineup. They're going to want to see those stuck dismounts. That's going to be the biggest thing of where they can make up those extra 10s.
And then New Hampshire will start on beam, which pushes them to floor in the second rotation. And there is a floor gymnast, a freshman, that you're really excited for.
Yeah, really excited to see Anya Reed. I am just really looking forward to watching her gymnastics, but also starting on beam. Don't want to forget about that. That's a really tough event to start on, so I'm excited to see how they're able to handle that pressure.
So New Hampshire, out of the EAGL conference, made the trek all the way down and got beautiful weather here in the low 70s in the upstate. And they got some Wildcat fans in attendance as well, as UNH comes out of a tight loss against George Washington at home on Sunday. That's the same GWU team that Clemson will see on the road next week. Meanwhile, Texas Women's, a team top 50 in NQS and a powerhouse Division II program led by Lisa Bowerman, came in 2nd place nationally in the USAG National Championship last year. And that's a team that feels like this is another walk in the park. They have tri-meets and quad meets all the time.
They really do, and we watched all these teams warm up. Warm-ups looked great, a lot of big gymnastics, and it's about to start right now. So we're going to see these 3 boxes. We're going to be jumping around from screen to screen. Again, there's a lot going on.
Quinn Cool will kick it off, the sophomore from North Carolina, here in the top left.
She's going to do that big Yurchenko fold that we've seen. Love the distance on that and how she took that minimal hop backwards. It's a great start for Clemson.
So now down on bars, we'll have the sophomore from Louisiana, Bailey Bourgeois. And over on beam is the freshman from Michigan in Maddie Harvey. And so, of course, there will be a lot of jumping around here, and we will certainly let Sydney describe a ton of the apparatuses. But you can follow along with the scores and the gymnasts over on the right side. Yeah,
we usually see vault get through pretty quickly, but then, again, bars and beam taking a little bit longer. You can see in the bottom of the screen. Beautiful bar routine starting off with that straddle Jaeger. Nice handstand, and she was able to save that. You could tell she had that arch in her back, so that may be a small deduction right there. And then we see that dismount getting ready, that full out dismount. Small step, but nice bar routine as well. Taking a look in the top right on beam, we saw that acro series, which was a triple series, really difficult.
And a great save as well from Harvey, who stays on that incredibly skinny beam.
Yeah, beam is no joke as an event. So again, we talk about starting on an event like this being very difficult. There are going to be some wobbles here and there and just some jitters maybe to get out.
Meanwhile, Sydney, you mentioned it, vault goes so quickly that Clemson is trying to time it out so that they don't have a ton of time. So Maggie Holman, the sophomore from North Carolina over on the top left, comes off of her career high in vault on Sunday against Stanford of a 9.85. So she will wait a while, and is that some strategy to try to time out this vault as you see Quinn Cool's score come in of 9.725. So now Holman is off and running.
And her vault is that huge front pike with the half twist. Really explosive vault, good distance from the table. Couldn't quite get that stick, which is what Coach Smith was talking about. She wants to see those stuck landings. You're gonna hear us talk about that a lot, but we are in postseason mode now, so that's really what they need.
And it is clear the biggest difference between your typical dual meet with just two teams is the flow. You're waiting for the judges to get back the score before you can start your second gymnast, but usually we're watching a different team compete right now. However, they're trying to get some chemistry going in the scoring.
Yeah, it looks like there's either gonna be nobody going on the events or everyone's gonna be going at once. So we're seeing right now, nobody. That's kind of rare though.
So we'll line up these second gymnasts as Gwen Ackerbloom gets set over on beam. Ackerbloom, a sophomore out of Connecticut, was all tournament last season, first team on beam. So this should be an impressive performance. She comes off her season high of 9.825.
Something to point out too, Maddie Harvey getting that 9.7 was a great start because it was a hit routine. Again, starting on balance beam, they're just gonna wanna look at those consistent hits all the way down their lineup.
So that'll give the green light to Ackerbloom as Lainey Hunt, a senior from Texas, will get ready on bars. Meanwhile, Madison Minner gets the green light. Hometown junior.
And we see that tucked 1.5, really difficult vault right there, and it does start from a 10.0, so that's gonna be one of their higher scores in this vault lineup. She did a nice job being able to land that. You can see in the bottom of our screen on bars that really nice straddle Jaeger as well. Goes a little bit over on that handstand, but is able to save it down to that pack release move. So far, so good on bars. Unfortunately, we did see a fall on balance beam. That's always really tough so early on in the lineup.
That's Ackerbloom up in that top right. Meanwhile, Holman again ties her career high with the 9.85, and Clemson is off to a strong start on vault.
Yeah, and that's what they were looking to do, a strong start on their first event, vault specifically. So that area of improvement is going to be huge for them, continuing to build momentum throughout the competition. Up in the top right on beam, finishing with that round off 1.5. So again, nice finish to the routine, but they're not gonna wanna see a fall that early on in the lineup. It's gonna add that pressure to the next 4 athletes up.
And of course, the top 5 scores on every rotation will be counted out of 6 as Madison Minner generates a colossal score, and that is just shy of her career high, a 9.875 for Minner, as Walsh comes off her career high of 9.85.
Up in the top left, we see that Yurchenko 1.5, another 10.0 start. One thing to point out about that, I love the control that she had. That's a blind landing, which is what makes it so difficult, but she was able to control that landing. And so that's gonna be another big score for them. They're on a roll on vault.
Clemson came into this meet coming off of their highest score of the season, 196.575, and it is certainly a target number because that top score of your season gets wiped away in the NQS rankings. So that score will ultimately not count in the final season for Clemson. They're looking to put together another personal best.
And I like how they're just being aggressive. They have so many 10.0s or potential 10.0 start values. A lot of times you don't see these athletes going for those, but I love that their lineup's like, hey, we're gonna do them and we're gonna minimize the deduction, and it's, you know, you can see it in their scores, it's paying off.
Meanwhile, the judges taking their time over on bars and beam as Clemson is already geared up for their 5th gymnast. And that's another 10-0 start value with the Yurchenko 1.5 from Eve Jackson. And Jackson comes off of her best meet of her career last week against Stanford with a 9.95 on floor. As Elena Reed gets ready in the top right on bars, or excuse me, bottom of the screen on bars.
And so far, we've seen a beautiful routine doing that straddle Jaeger to that pack down to low bar.
Jackson is off.
Another huge 1.5. Notice how she took that small hop, which will be a deduction, but she did a great job staying in between those white lines. Again, they're being really aggressive with their vaults. 2 9.875s back to back. So really nice job.
Clemson comes out very strong. This is coming off of a season high on vault of 49.050. So if Clemson can top that 49 number, that's going to be a target for vaults, as Anya Reed, the freshman, a phenom who originally committed to Lindenwood, the national champions in D2. They had their program dissolved, and so New Hampshire got to grab her, and Reed, who has won 4 straight Conference Rookie of the Week awards.
Yeah, it looks like the judges over on beam are taking a little bit longer. It could be from that fall that we saw. They're trying to see that start value or evaluate some of the skills in that routine. But that's what's holding that up, which does put more pressure. It almost gives you more time to get in your head for the athlete that's waiting on beam. So this is a really crucial routine for this New Hampshire beam lineup.
Meanwhile, Molly Arnold, who has not competed on vault since opening day in Oklahoma, will get set on vault, and we are told she will have that Yurchenko 1.5 in her back pocket.
We'll take a look here in the top left. Let's see if she does it. She does pull that Yurchenko 1.5 around, a little bit squatty and out of bounds, but that's gonna give her confidence of being able to throw it in a competition setting, so well done there.
Cami Zarlingo, the junior out of Colorado, over on bars for Texas Women's. Meanwhile, regardless of what Arnold scores, Clemson will have their season high on vault, and it's by quite a large margin as Reed is able to hold on to that beam.
Yeah, and taking a look at the bar routine on the left side, beautifully done piked Jaeger. I really like the flow of this bar routine. Gears up for that double layout dismount. The smallest shift of her feet, but nice bar routine for Texas Women's.
So we get a bit of a breather now, back to just 2 screens as Clemson is done on vault, waiting on the Molly Arnold result. And the team is so happy to have Arnold back on vault. She has only competed on floor this season, aside from the opening day, as Reed gets a big hug, certainly not thrilled with that beam. And McCall McMullen waits as the Tigers have some time now until they will move over to uneven bars, right? And that's certainly gonna get in their heads. They're gonna have to wait until Texas Women's are done with their bars.
Yeah, and I think when you're on vault, whether you start on it or you're on it in the middle of the competition, second or third rotation, you know that vault's gonna go pretty quick. It's always the quickest event. So you know you're gonna have a little bit extra time there to kind of stay calm, stay cool, get collected again for what the next event is gonna be.
So Arnold's 9.725 equals Cool, who kicked off the apparatus, and Clemson with their season high of 49.150.
And that's something that they should be very proud of. We saw strong explosive vaults, but I also saw a lot of controlled landings, which is what should be happening at this point in the season. They did a great job with that. Molly Arnold, loved that she threw the 1.5, but again, we saw just a little bit of form break at the end and also that big squat, so that was gonna be the main deduction. But it didn't seem to affect the lineup, because a 49.15 is a great start for them.
Meanwhile, Zarlingo's score is in 9.675. So Brooke Ferrari, one of the All-Americans from a season ago, she competed in the USAG individuals here on bars as the junior out of Colorado on the left should impress.
She starts off this bar routine with a nice straddle Jaeger. Those handstands, we've seen a couple of them now go a little bit over. You can see how her body position broke form a little bit, but she was able to pull it back. That is going to be a slight deduction. But again, nice flow throughout this routine. Just has the dismount left. It's going to be a double layout. Almost had that stick. I would have liked to have seen a little bit straighter legs throughout the double layout, but a nice hit for them.
And the sophomore from Georgia, McCall McMullen on the right.
Starting off with her acro series, it's going to be a back handspring, back layout. Again, we saw that mistake earlier in this lineup, so it's really important for these next couple of athletes and routines to be hit. She does that cat leap. It's that leap combination, wobble on that. She's getting through this routine really nicely. The form is breaking a bit, so that is going to be a deduction throughout. The judges are really looking for those straight legs, those pointed toes, that extension throughout the entire routine on each skill that you're doing. Getting ready for the dismount here. A round off 1.5. Didn't quite have enough power on that, so that step backwards is going to be another deduction. The judges want to see too much power. That's better if you're stepping forwards on a skill like that. So again, a little bit more of a deduction.
Meanwhile, Texas women need a big score from their All-American. The transfer from Oregon State, Caitlin Hoyland, set a Pioneer record last season on bars with a 9.95, and she gets ready to mount on the left once the Ferrari score comes in.
Yeah, and we didn't mention her earlier in the broadcast, but that was one of the routines in gymnast that we wanted to watch tonight. So this will be a good and fun routine coming up here.
We're certainly hoping that the judges can keep pace as this tri-meet continues. Clemson has been done for a few minutes.
I was gonna say, I think we were talking about how fast the meet might go tonight because so much is going on at once, which is what makes it fun. But looks like the judging's taking a little bit longer.
So Ferrari has come in with the Pioneers' third 9.675. And Hoyland, who had not competed in beam with Oregon State, has certainly found a liking down in Denton, which is where Clemson had their first ever quad meet last season. Tigers were able to squeeze by the Pioneers in that one.
And over on bars, we saw that nice piked Jaeger down to the low bar. You could see that shoot hand dead in a handstand there. Really like to see those lines and positions. Just the dismount into that double tuck dismount. Didn't quite get the stick, but really beautiful routine. Again, nice release move, great form throughout. And then I like the height she got on that double back dismount there as well.
So that'll wrap up the second screen and leave it to just the Wildcats. And it is a three-time conference specialist of the week in Annie Chalman, the sophomore.
She starts out with that switch leap, split jump. Was a little difficult to see, but her feet shifted a little bit on that combination. So in order to get the bonus for that 10-0 start value, you have to connect those leaps and jumps. So we'll see what they take on that. Nice acro series, that back handspring layout. Looks like she's just a little shaky throughout the routine. But again, it's that first event jitters and also following that fall from earlier as well.
And how tough is it to start on beam?
It's very tough to start on beam because it's the first event of the entire competition. You have two other teams going at the same time. And especially in her position with the mistake before, it puts even more of that pressure. So the rest of the lineup has done a great job so far. Ends with that round off 1.5 stick. She's gonna be happy with that.
So we're waiting on Hoyland's score to round out Texas women's bars routine. as UNH with their anchor and their most talented gymnast in Serena Mullen, who is all-tournament last season and an all-around competitor. What's interesting is Clemson does not have any all-arounders. Hoping maybe later in the season, maybe postseason, we could see Rebecca Wells perform all 4 apparatuses, but we might see a couple of the Wildcats put together all 4, as you see Rebecca Wells just biding her time, as Clemson has certainly been tested here tonight in terms of the waiting game, as Hoyland's score comes in, and that's a team high 9.775 to round out bars. And we get ready for Mullen's final routine of this first rotation.
Yeah, talk about a pressure situation. This is a perfect example of one here. And we talk about that waiting game. I'd say it's probably most difficult on an event like balance beam. When we talk about the all-arounders as well for these teams, it is really difficult. And you don't typically have too many all-arounders, if any. So maybe 1, maybe 2, but it's tough in college to do all 4 events. It's really tough on your body as well. So it's always neat to see these athletes that are able to do all 4 events. And props to them, because it is not easy.
Judges have been tested as well, as UNH has not gotten off to the best start on beam.
Yeah, and they may have just taken, like I said, those start values, those combination for the leaps, you have to connect those. The judges that may not have given her that, which would result in those deductions. Starting off here, strong with the back handspring, back layout, no problems there. She does that nice Sasson to that leap combination there. Cat leap into a side aerial. Really lovely beam routine so far. I love that she's actually smiling too throughout. Don't see that often during these types of routines, but she just looks so confident and strong on this event. You never know the pressure that she's under, but so far, I've really loved this beam routine. Just has this dismount left. It's gonna be a round off 1.5. Almost had the stick. Those situations are tough because they might deduct more for lifting that leg up, but really nice and strong beam routine to end that lineup.
And so our first rotation officially comes to a close. Clemson will move over to those bars as we will take a break. Come on back in a little bit here on the ACC Network Extra. One rotation down as we move around the conference. Let's take a look at what has been cooking in the ACC, and of course those 2 newcomers in Cal and Stanford have grabbed all the attention. And Sydney, Cal becomes the highest ranked team in the ACC in the top 5.
They've done a phenomenal job this year. I think we've just seen the ACC level continue to rise, and these athletes continue to do better week in and week out. So it's been really fun to watch.
And of course, the Cardinal just eked by Clemson here on Sunday, and NC State and UNC. Big time rivalry that had a fun finish if you were able to catch that one. Meanwhile, we take a look at the wider picture, and the ACC Championship is something that Coach Amy Smith has targeted that night session. Here's more details on how all of that will wrap up in about a month.
Yeah, that's coming up quick. We're taking a look now at postseason. So how are they going to get into that night session? Like we mentioned, that's where those teams want to be. So it's going to be really close, but Clemson's going to be looking at those details and those high scores in these next couple of competitions they have.
And of course, North Carolina, the team in that 4 spot. Let's take a look at the entire ACC from the NQS rankings. And Clemson about 2/10 behind UNC. Meanwhile, those top 3 feel pretty secure.
Well, this is what gymnastics is all about. Take a look at how close each of these scores are. It literally comes down to the 10th. So this is what makes it exciting. And again, nearing postseason, this is what it's all about.
We've got rotation too here on this Military Appreciation Night coming up next here on the ACC Network Extra. Fans of all ages enjoying Clemson gymnastics on a busy day around campus. Softball won their 200th win in program history in a doubleheader today. Baseball, of course, in the biggest rivalry around these parts as they will take on South Carolina at 7 o'clock. But center stage here on campus, gymnastics has certainly taken this campus and this student body by storm.
Yeah, absolutely. Just taking a look at the crowd and how many sellouts they've had for a program that's only 2 years old now has just been incredible and so much fun to watch and be in and a part of. So just to see them coming out of the gate strong last year, but also this year, we see tonight on vault with that 49.15 we were just talking about. Huge start for them.
And their season high in vault came last week with a 49.05. And so they get a 10th of an increase there. And what does that do to set up your confidence knowing that you are chasing a high score tonight?
Yeah, well, I always like to say you want to peak at the right time. And so that's going to be peaking around now and the next coming weeks, but around that postseason time. And that's what it looks like Clemson is starting to do. So that's going to boost their confidence because they know they can get these scores. They know they can do these vaults now. So to see it come to fruition is huge.
And the purple camo look for Coach Amy Smith on Military Appreciation Night, the second-year woman in charge who was a standout in her time in the leotard with UCLA, and of course has revitalized, created this program, and certainly brought a love of the sport. The ACC Coach of the Year and a second-place finish in the ACCs. And she knows if you're in the day session for the ACC championships, you're probably not winning. And that's why it's so important to get to the night session.
The night session is always a really fun spot to be in. You have the crowd, it's at night, you have all the energy, and you know, speaking from personal experience, I've been in the morning session and in the night one, and I can confirm the night is more fun.
Meanwhile, New Hampshire is getting set on floor, and this is the one twist to the quad and the tri-meet. We get floor almost right away, which is undoubtedly the fan favorite, as UNH's head coach, Lindsey Brooke-Ayotte, in her 6th season, an All-American in her own right at Michigan, a Honda Award finalist. She took over 6 years ago for the longtime head coach, Gail Goodspeed, who spent 40 years at the helm of UNH. And there is no doubt that New Hampshire is looking for a better score here on floor.
Yeah, I think it's going to be important for them to be able to reset. Beam wasn't going quite as expected, but they finished strong. So that's a positive to take from that rotation. Now you have floor where you really can use that energy and be aggressive. I think this is a great event for them to come to next, and then from there be able to finish off strong. But that's really what they need to focus on now.
And it's a freshman to kick things off for UNH on floor in Stacey Boss, as Bailey Upton, a freshman from North Carolina, starts on beam for TWU. But why don't we talk for a moment here about the leadoff, who has certainly taken that name, that leadoff spot for Clemson. Lily Lippett, she'll lead off in the next 3 apparatuses and really set the tone.
Being a leadoff on any event is such an honor because that's a difficult spot to be in. That's going to be your strongest, most consistent athlete majority of the time. Your teammates can always rely on them for a hit routine. So it speaks volumes to have her be the leadoff on 3 events. Starting off here on bars, Really nice handstand and then release move. Notice how she went that high bar to low bar combination that we've seen a lot of already tonight. But these handstands right on top of the bar. She does that blind full, looking for a stick on this double tuck, and she gets it. Wow. Beautiful start for Clemson. That's exactly what they're looking for.
An all-ACC selection on bars and the ACC newcomer of the year a season ago. Lippitt kicks things off with a flare, and now Boss and Upton on the top screens.
Yeah, like you mentioned, we're gonna see floor so early on, which is something that you don't see in these dual meets, but that's what adds all of the energy and makes it so electric in here the entire competition. Starting off this first pass, she does a front tuck through to a double tuck. Nicely done there. See, she does that switch side to that straddle full leap combination. Those leaps and jumps on floor are just as important as the tumbling as well, because that's adding to that 10-0 start value. We're also taking a look to the left of the screen on balance beam as well. Bailey Upton.
Upton comes off her career high last weekend in Louisiana against Centenary with a 9.775.
I really like her form in that extension throughout those leaps there. Could see on floor as well, that last tumbling pass was that front double full. A little bit of form break on there, but she was able to hold on to that landing. Clemson also on bars on the bottom of your screen there. We have Dakota Berry starting off with that shaposh down to that pack. A lot of combinations on these bar routines. Right back up to the high bar. You can see that handstand. Gearing up for this dismount. She does a double layout. Small shift back. Almost had the stick on that, but again, these routines are continuing to build throughout.
And Lippitt's score comes in, ties her season high of a 9.85 as Berry comes off of a career high. That was a 9.875 against Stanford. And you could tell there's already been an adjustment made. The coaches clearly had a conversation and said, you know what, we're gonna go even if the judges aren't done. And that's Berry who went before Lippitt's score came in.
Right, and you could see too, for Clemson, that if you're starting, your leadoff is starting with a 9.85, you're sitting real pretty there. That's a great spot to be in and really sets up the rest of your lineup.
Meanwhile, in the top right, McCall McMullen, the sophomore from Georgia, in the 2 spot on floor as Stacy Boss's score yet to come in. Elena Reed, a freshman on bars. Check that beam over on the top left, has a chat with her 14th year head coach, Lisa Bowerman.
And a lot of times too, when the judges raise that green flag, they're able to go. So their score might not show up yet, but they're at least still ready for that next athlete to go and to be able to judge and evaluate on that.
And almost simultaneously, the 2 visitors kick off.
It's always fun getting to start exactly at the same time. Over on the left side of that acro series, back handspring layout. Unfortunately, couldn't stay on. It's definitely not what they were looking for early on in the lineup.
Meanwhile, Dakota Berry with a 9.725 brings up Eve Jackson's routine on bars.
So a huge straddle Jaeger down to that shoot over to the low bar. Back up, love to see that handstand on top of the bar. She's gonna be looking for a stick right here. Can she get it? Almost has it, but a nice finish. Really like the height that she gets on those release moves and the form she has as well, that execution. is crucial. Over on beam, could see a nice finish on that dismount, but again, that was a fall in their lineup, so they're gonna be looking to kind of make up for that throughout. And on floor, last tumbling pass, it's gonna be a round off back handspring double tuck. Notice how she landed with her chest down and had to take that step forward, so that'll be the deduction there. But again, it is difficult to end with a double back tumbling pass.
As Sophie Hernandez, grad senior, gets set on beam. She's an All-American on floor. We'll see that next rotation for TWU as Lauren Rutherford, who has worked her way back from injury, competes in her 4th consecutive meet on bars. That's on the bottom of your screen, the senior from Georgia. As Clemson awaits Eve Jackson's score. Gracie Mowers next up on floor for New Hampshire.
Yeah, Clemson really does have a strong bar lineup. We see a lot of great gymnastics, whether it's on the release moves or on those dismounts, just throughout the routines. So they're gonna be looking for those high scores in these next couple of routines. You can see Sophie Hernandez dancing in the top left corner before beam. Not something that you see too often.
This is certainly something that was not planned for, with a bit of miscommunication from the judges on all three, as Elena Reed comes in with an 8-7, which will give that green light for Hernandez on the top left. Or so we assume.
Still dancing over there. Hey, that's the kind of headspace you have to be in, though. For a pressure situation like this, she's coming after a fall, so gotta be a little bit loose there. Looks like we have beam and floor starting again at the same time. The top 2 screens.
Senior Gracie Mowers on the top right comes off of a 9-7-7-5 on floor against George Washington on Sunday at home.
See that floor tumbling pass, a huge double pike. Had a lot of power, so took that bigger step right there. On beam, we saw that back handspring, back layout, acro series, nicely done there. And so far on the bottom screen on bars, this has been a good routine. She's gonna wanna stick this dismount. Can she do it on the double layout? Almost had it. I think her foot moved a little bit, and I'm not trying to be picky, but Lauren Rutherford with the tiniest little movement on that double layout. Beautiful routine though.
Jackson's score has come in, 9-8-2-5. So again, Clemson off to a strong start, and there's the stick from Hernandez.
She did that back handspring, a 1.5, that blind landing, but nice routine and way to get them back on track with that. Over on floor, you saw that double back, just looked like she didn't have quite enough power to pull that around, but she did save herself. If her hands would have touched the ground, then that would have counted as a fall.
Mowers finishes off floor, and it should be a really fun back-to-back on floor with Mullen, who was an all-tournament honoree on floor last season in the conference, and then Reed, who has been one of the best in the Northeast in this apparatus, as Rebecca Wells awaits the green flag, the grad senior transfer from Utah State. Of course, Amy Smith brought so many of those Aggies with her when getting the Clemson job. Wells has been working on a new dismount on beam. We'll see that next rotation. She has certainly been consistent on bars, 9-7 or higher in every meet this season.
Yeah, I really like watching her bar routine. She has explosive gymnastics, but also has that execution factor as well, which is really tough to have. But you're gonna see, like I mentioned, big gymnastics from her on these release moves, but also that form and sharpness on bars. Starting off with that handstand on top of the bar. She gets ready for that Tkachev. Notice the height she gets on that, is able to go down to the low bar for that combination. Right back up to the high bar, holds that handstand, it just has the dismount left. See if she can get a stick right here on that full out. She's able to hold the stick. So nicely done on that. You did see her chest move forward. So it's really tough because her feet didn't move, but the judges will probably take on that back and forth movement there. But nicely done there for that bar routine.
Meanwhile, one of the top performances to watch in Serena Mullen, the junior, on floor.
Getting ready for this first tumbling pass. She's gonna do that front tuck, and it looked like she just got messed up. You saw it on that punch front tuck, so she missed that whole first pass there. That's gonna be a really big deduction and is gonna hurt her start value. I'm not sure how you make that up throughout the rest of the routine. You don't see that too often, but again, it just was a timing issue, or it looked like she kind of just got held up with those bent arms.
Steely King in the top left, coming off her season high on beam of 9.850.
Starting off with that acro series, back handspring layout. Nicely done there. Over on the right side of the screen on floor, a 1.5 layout, so she's able to get that tumbling pass around.
See the scores coming in over on the right side, Hernandez and Mowers.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the judges will do with that because she missed an entire tumbling pass. So we'll see what they end up giving her for a start value. Again, floor is hard to be able to make it up because you have the choreography and dance along with it.
So it's the freshman's turn on the bottom. Hannah Clark out of Huntington Beach. 3 straight 9.8 plus.
Beautifully done, Pite Jaeger. Right back down to the low bar. Love that she was able to hold that handstand on the high bar as well. Just has this dismount. Nice double layout, and it is a stick. Wow, that's gonna be a good score for Clemson. Again, her toes were pointed, her feet didn't come apart. That's something that's gonna stand out for the judges when taking a look at that routine. And beautiful job there.
Keep in mind, Clemson's season high on bars is 49.250. They've done that twice, including a few days ago here at home. Don't think that's possible here after those first 5 routines. So Steely King is done, and it's time for Anya Reed, who has been named Rookie of the Week 7 out of the 8 weeks in the EAGL for New Hampshire. Freshman from Massachusetts who has a 9.8 or higher in every career meet on floor, and she's having fun out there.
Absolutely. I love all the dancing that's going on. It makes it all a lot more fun, and you can just see her having a good time before she's even started her routine.
And on the left side, the senior from Florida, Emma Berkledge. Did not train much this past week. She had a tough injury on a fall, but she is good to go on beam for the Pioneers of TWU following the Steely King 9.775.
Yeah, Texas women right now, they've had a couple of mistakes here and there throughout the beam lineup, so they're really just going to want to focus on these next 2 routines and seeing that they can get the best score that they can out of these athletes.
And a big score for Clark is unfortunately King off the beam. And that'll wrap up Clemson on bars 49, 1, 2, 5. So they are off to a hot start on pace, trying to get that 196.
Yeah, absolutely. They've done a great job, like we mentioned before, building that momentum and taking it with them from event to event. Texas women here on beam, we just saw that fall, unfortunately. The gymnastics that they're doing is great gymnastics. It's just the smallest little errors here and there. We forget that the beam is only 4 inches, so if you're a tiny bit off one direction or the other, it's gonna affect your entire skill. But nice finish to that routine. Not what they were looking for, but they're really gonna want to try and pull it together for this next routine to be able to end the rotation well.
And are you coming to the conclusion that UNH has not been giving the green flag because of that missed pass by Mullen? The judges are trying to account for it?
Yes, so you don't see too often that there's an entire missed pass. You might miss a, jump or a combo, a combination, but she did a front tuck, round off back handspring, back tuck, which is equivalent to like a level 7 or below type of skill, and it's truly just because she messed up, but the judges are having to decide, what do we do with that? What does that look like for start value? So I'm not surprised that there is a judges conference for that.
A tough challenge for the freshman Reed, who was ready to roll and now has to continue to wait. And on the left side, Caitlin Hoyland, the All-American for TWU, coming off of her season high on beam last week with a 9.8, working on a few nerve shakeouts with head coach Lisa Bowerman, who is an Illinois State alum, 3-time NCAA experiences for Bowerman in her 14th year. And now finally, are we hoping that floor is given that? Nope, not yet. Just a little bit of YMCA.
Not quite yet, but you've got to give her props for staying warm. It's really tough to do on floor, being such an aggressive event. You've got to keep that energy up because this event requires the most energy. So she's doing a great job being able to kind of feed off of her teammates who are cheering her on as well and kind of staying in her bubble, but that's what you have to do. Again, these are situations that you do practice for, and they will happen in the postseason. So it is a good test.
That's a good story for Anya Reed. She was committed to go to the national champion in Lindenwood at a D2, but Lindenwood's program was dissolved. Already offered an opportunity to go to UNH, but no scholarship was available from Coach Brooke Ayotte. And then when Reed went back out on the open market, there was a scholarship available, and nobody was happier than Coach Brooke Ayotte to grab this talented freshman who has gotten off to a tremendous freshman season up in New Hampshire. So Texas women's final run on beam is off and running for Hoyland. The floor as well.
Starting off on beam, we saw that front aerial to the back handspring. Really pretty extensions throughout. Over on floor, a huge double layout to start off this tumbling series right there. That is a difficult E skill. So talk about having to stay warm. She did a great job. Over on beam two, she's moving through this routine really gracefully. I like the sharpness that she has in her dance as well. I mentioned earlier the extension that she has throughout. Does that gainer full off the side. So a great ending to that rotation for Texas women's. On floor two, we're seeing that front layout to that front full. So a really nice routine as well. They're able to reset from that mistake from Serena Mullen earlier. She kind of got them back on track, which will be great.
UNH hoping to discount that Mullen sub-9 score. Texas women is trying to do the same thing with the Elena Reed score as we await the Hoyland result. But there is little doubt to who is dominating this meet, and that is Clemson, who have 249 rotations under their belt, moving into beam around the corner.
And I think one thing to point out is Clemson started on vault, really aggressive event, had a great score there, then went to bars, same thing, really aggressive on bars as well, and now you go to beam, which is a more calming event. So how are they gonna stay cool, calm, and collected on an event like balance beam, where we always like to call it a make or break event?
Yep.
They're really gonna wanna attack it, but again, staying in their bubble to an extent. And not letting that pressure of, hey, we're doing so well, we're on a roll, how do we keep that up, but not doing too much?
And you have to go all the way back to January 26th for Clemson's season high on beam, and that's just over a 49.025. So the Tigers have to stay loose as Annie Chalman gets ready for floor to finish out this rotation. Sophomore from Pennsylvania has a career high of 995 here on floor.
Yeah, 995, what a fantastic score there. She'll definitely be trying to match that here, starting off with her first tumbling pass. It's gonna be a front handspring double front full, which is so difficult because of that front line landing. Really like the facial expressions throughout. Got some Michael Jackson in there. Next tumbling pass here. It's gonna be a Rudy to a back layout step out. One of my favorite floor passes to watch.
Hoyland's score does come in of a 9.5, so Texas women's with a 47.5.
What a fun floor routine to watch. Love the choreography, love the facial expressions. And beautiful tumbling throughout as well. So nicely done to end that New Hampshire lineup.
We're going to step away as we are halfway through in Clemson's first home tri-meet ever. Back with Sydney Sneed, I'm Daniel Gilman. And Sydney, both opponent coaches tonight talked about the attendance and the crowd atmosphere to get their teams ready for a raucous environment. And here's a look from the opening meet of Clemson gymnastics history to what has been a tremendous run. 6 straight sellouts up until last week. The fans show out here in Littlejohn.
Yeah, they really do. I said it before, but it just feels so electric in here, and it's just got to make those athletes feel so confident and just so supported by these fans who are so excited to come and watch them. For only being in their second year, too, that is absolutely insane that they're selling out left and right. And if you're the visiting team, it's even more fun because you get to experience just the loud crowd and the excitement throughout, so it's fun on both ends.
Tigers 7th in the nation in average attendance this season, and they have been privy to a show as Clemson on pace to their highest score this season if they can continue in this stretch, as the Tigers will move to balance beam. We'll see Lily Lippett lead things off. That'll push Texas women's to floor, and we will see New Hampshire in what has been their most impressive apparatus, which is vault, which should give them some confidence to finish out this routine.
Yeah, New Hampshire's gonna want to be looking for their best event, being able to capitalize on that. We see that Texas women's and New Hampshire pretty close on the scoring there. Both teams are gonna want to try to make up some tenths from previous mistakes. So looking at the next couple of routines, where can they find that extra tenth here and there? Clemson, like we mentioned, they're on fire tonight, trying to get that high score, even a season best, and they are on track to do it. So how can they stay calm and collected on this next event and then kind of ramp it up again, ending on floor with the home crowd?
And this should set up the Tigers for a tri-meet next weekend in DC against George Washington, and then a top 25 team in Penn State before they come back home for Senior Day on March 14th against Penn State, which, as we mentioned, Clemson is just so focused on trying to catch UNC in a top 4 spot in the ACC.
Yeah, we've said it on the broadcast, but that postseason starting to become really important. And so these teams are going to be looking at what's it going to take to get there and be successful in these coming competitions. I will point out the tri-meets and the quad meets have seemed to be a lot more popular in the last couple of years for these teams. That they want to kind of simulate what regionals will look like, what nationals will be like, even the conference championships. So that's why we've seen so many of these types of competitions. And
we've reached the third rotation, which means Bree Clark has entered the conversation. She is second on beam. Serena Mullen kicks off vault.
That top left screen, we see that Yurchenko full. I like the distance she got. I would have liked to have seen a little bit more height and control on that landing, but a solid vault to start off their lineup there.
Redshirt sophomore Lily Lippett kicks off beam, coming off of a 9-8 on Sunday.
Starting off with that front aerial to that swing down, a really neat and unique skill on balance beam we don't see too often.
Bailey Upton, freshman on the bottom of the screen on the floor.
We saw her start out with a Rudy, which is a front 1.5 there. So far, so good on both of these routines we're watching. That floor double pike there, nicely done. I like the height she got on that. Taking a look up on beam as well. So far, just a really solid routine.
Coach Smith made an appearance in the top right as well, jumping through the camera with excitement.
She has that gainer front full. Is she able to hold the stick? I don't know. I couldn't see. It looked like it from this angle.
There was a little wobble up top, but the feet did not move as Leah Moreno on vaults with a little bounce.
Another Yurchenko full. That bounce was bigger, so that will be a deduction. It's hard to see from our angle how far, but it did look like she took a slightly bigger one. So that'll be majority of where the judges take off.
That'll cue up Bree Clark off a 9.825 last Sunday on beam, and she'll give her head coach a big hug as they wait for Lippett's score. Cami Zarlingo on deck on floor, and Gwen Ackerblum ready on vault. We are fully in the midst of things here in Littlejohn Coliseum, a tri-meet for the first time here in Littlejohn in the 2-year history of Clemson gymnastics. They're certainly hoping this might be a regional site in the future.
Yeah, I think this would be a perfect regional site. Look at the crowd that they're pulling in for these dual meets and regular season meets. I mean, truly, these tri-meets and quad meets are some of the most fun. Right now, nobody's on the equipment, but when everyone's going at the same time, it would be, you know, like someone lands, the crowd goes wild. Someone else lands, 5 seconds later, the crowd goes wild. So it's constant screaming. And I used to love it. So I'm sure these athletes would say the same.
Lippett generates the 9.8. Plus, we know the upstate is one of the premier areas for women's sports. You've got the women's basketball Final Four last year in Greenville, the SEC Women's Basketball Championships next month in Greenville, maybe next week even, as Clark, Ackerblum, Zarlingo.
in that vault in the top left. Wow, I really like the height she got on that Yurchenko full. We've seen a lot of those today, but that is the first one that I've seen end with a stick. So really nicely done for New Hampshire. We just saw Bree Clark on the right do a standing front tuck, which is insanely hard. She makes it look too easy, along with that acro series, that back handspring back layout right there. One thing to point out and highlight for her is just the height she gets. It looks like she's doing these skills on the floor, but she's actually doing it on the 4-inch beam. Just has this dismount left. We'll see if she can get a stick to this gorgeous routine, and she gets it with a Rudy off of the end. Wow. Sticks are contagious, and that's what it's looking like for this Clemson lineup here.
Once again, the Tigers' target is 49. 49-1 would be superb. As Zarlingo off and running on floor on the bottom of your screen. There we are as well.
Yeah, we've got a up front and close view of the floor. I'd say arguably is the best spot to be in here.
I wouldn't have it any other way as McCall McMullen on vault.
We see that Yurchenko full again. Because we see so many of these Yurchenko fulls on vault, what is going to differentiate you and what's going to make it different? It's going to be the height off of the table, the distance from the table, and then that controlled landing. We haven't seen too many controlled landings, so that's where we're finding those deductions are coming from. Over on floor, a nice solid routine as well. I like the tumbling throughout. Really like these facial expressions. The choreography tonight I've been so impressed with these teams. And a nice finish there.
Tremendous routine by Cami Zarlingo as the freshman out of Arizona on beam. Danica Nielsen follows Bree Clark's 9.875.
A huge score right there, yeah.
Pretty good to set up the tone. Now Clemson can compete a little freer with those two 9.8 plus.
Yeah, they're definitely in a great spot right now. These are the type of situations that you practice for and want in competition.
There's Gracie Mowers on the left.
And she does that layout half. Again, that's a blind landing, so it is really difficult. She did have a lot of control in that, so I'd love to see that. That's going to be a good score for them.
Yeah, her career high is only 9.825. She might be able to top that as, Nielsen comes off the beam. Luckily, Clemson can throw away one score out of the 6.
Yeah, and that was on that triple series. It's that back handspring, back layout. Her hips, if you could tell, just looked like they were too sideways. They were a little bit off throughout, which makes it harder to save. So yeah, unfortunately, that is going to be a fall for them. She ends with that 1.5, so finishes off well. That is a bummer because their first two athletes were doing a great job of building up those scores. But it is okay because we've seen mistakes happen before and they're able to reset and bounce back and still be consistent and hit.
Anya Reed anchoring the vault for New Hampshire. She comes off her career high, 9.8.
She's gonna do a Yurchenko full. She did a round off onto her back handspring onto the table. Just looked like her hands didn't get a good block. She looked high on her hands, and when that's the case, you have no block for the power of the actual Yurchenko full. So just couldn't quite get enough there.
And we've talked a lot about Lindenwood. Cut their program as Trinity Caffey, a grad senior who won the national championship in D2 last year, transfers over on the left side on floor.
She started with that front layout to the Rudy there, which is a 1.5. We said this before on the broadcast, but she took a step forward, so that shows that you're a little bit short of power. The judges could deduct a tiny bit more in that case.
Meanwhile, a little bit extra pressure now on these last 3 gymnasts for Clemson as the grad senior Tara Walsh at her 3rd stop. Previously Michigan State and Auburn. Just her 4th beam meet of the season. You talk about having to step up to the occasion following that Nielsen fall.
Yeah, I think this is a great opportunity for her to step up, get a nice hit routine for this lineup. Beautifully done, double back right there. Looks like she stuck it on floor as well. So another nicely hit routine for Texas women over on floor.
Anya Reed with that 9.025 will be canceled out, but a pretty strong showing from New Hampshire on vault. As Nielsen with an 8.950 will lead to this Walsh routine that will carry a lot of weight. Love the music choice here too.
Yeah, great song. So far, starts out with that back handspring layout. No issues on that. I almost want to sing along to this song. I'm so used to it.
I also would like to do that.
She does that front toss. Wobbles on that was off, but does a great job of staying on the beam there. That's when you really have to fight. That's that grit in that fight, saying, hey, I'm not coming off of this beam right now. So she is continuing to move through.
Meanwhile, Sophia Isbell, sophomore from Massachusetts, compete on floor.
Looking at the dismount on beam, that round off 1.5 and pulls in that stick. So nice job being able to hold on to that. It kind of makes up for that wobble that she had earlier on in the routine. But that's what they were looking for, a hit routine to follow the mistake. Over on floor 2, we saw that nice first tumbling pass. I like that she was able to land upright and also have that control. On floor, the judges are still really looking for your chest up when you land. Getting ready for this next pass here. She's gonna do that round up 1.5 to front layout. Beautifully done. We see that pass a lot in college gymnastics. It's really nice to see the rise on that front layout, that second skill there. But a nice way to end that floor routine.
Stage is set for the sophomore Sierra Church, who just 2 weeks ago we were on the call for her 9.9 on beam, and that is something that Coach Smith and these Clemson fans are hoping for from Church in the 5 spot as they await the Walsh score.
Yeah, she's a great athlete to have in the 5th spot here. We've seen some great gymnastics from her and some great beam routines as well.
All smiles on the left side. There's Lisa Bowerman. Spent 7 years as the assistant in Denton for TWU. As Walsh's score comes in at a 9.6.
And most of that deduction is probably from that wobble we saw in the front toss.
This is how strong of a meet it's been for Clemson. That is the lowest score that they will have to count tonight.
Yeah, that's a great spot to be in so far in this beam routine. something to highlight is just her form and execution that she has throughout each of her skills. Starting off here, the back handspring, back layout, acro series. Love that sharp finish as well. Over on the floor too, we saw that double pike with that chest up landing.
Sophie Hernandez, an All-American on floor, had a 9.95 to tie the school record last season.
That side aerial on beam, had a wobble there. So we're seeing a couple of wobbles here and there. Might be a couple of nerves or jitters, but they're doing a great job being able to reel it back in and still hit their beam routines. Over on floor, next tumbling pass here. It's gonna be a 1.5 front layout. Great job on there. And then for the dismount, that round off 1.5. She was short of power there. It looked like she really had to pull it around at the end. So a bit of a squat and step backwards. That is gonna be a deduction for them. We'll see what the judges do for that. And then over to floor. That's gonna be a big score for Texas women's. They think so too.
They certainly love it, as the Pioneers at 49th in the NQS, New Hampshire at 52. And there will need to be a big score coming from Clemson in the anchor spot, as Quinn Cool is on the heels of her career high of that 9.875 last Sunday against Stanford.
Yeah, and we talked about how well Clemson is doing. It's okay to have mistakes here and there. Those happen. And the good thing about it is that they had such a high score on vault and bars that, you know, it's okay. They can afford a lower score here and there. Yes, they're still trying to beat that season high and to get every 10th, but again, mistakes do happen. It's about how do you react and how do you keep moving on, because every team's gonna have mistakes. No teams are gonna be perfect.
Some more dancing. This is the freshman Kylie Gambari, looking to stay loose on the left side, as Texas Women's University in position again to head to the USAG National Championship. That'll be in Shreveport. Same spot as their conference championship on March 21st, as Gambari and Quinn Cool on your screens now.
Looks like we're just gonna be seeing floor right now.
Big score from Hernandez, 9.875.
Really well deserved. We saw a lot of explosive tumbling, but the biggest thing were those landings. Starting off, huge double pike. Notice how she actually got higher on the second flip, which is very difficult to do. Had a bit of a bigger lunge back, but nice job there.
That church score is in, sub 9.5.
Yeah, that's gonna be from those wobbles a little bit throughout, but Quinn Cool starting off with the back handspring, back layout. No problems there. That triple series, really difficult. She does that switch leap to that tuck 3/4 right there as well. This is a big routine for Clemson.
Oh, there is no overstating that fact, Sydney.
And on floor, we saw that full front layout. We're going back and forth. It's like playing ping pong with the screen.
Welcome to Gymnastics Red Zone channel.
Yeah, this is like almost postseason gymnastics here. Does that double back to finish that floor routine. Nicely done. Quinn looking for a stick on the round off 1.5. Couldn't quite get the stick, but a solid routine and end for Clemson's beam lineup. She did a great job being able to hit that routine under that pressure.
So we await that score as Texas women wrap up on floor, and we will let you know where everyone sits when we come back. One rotation left, but first we'll tell you a little bit about the postseason next. Happy rotations. We are just over a month away from NCAAs, and let's take some time to draw it all out for you with 36 teams qualifying for the regionals. And remember, just 4 on the floor making it to Fort Worth in the end of April.
Yeah, NCAAs are no joke. You've got to qualify and compete your best in each of these meets. 8 teams advance to NCAAs, but you can see that through regionals, there's 4 host sites: Alabama, Penn State, Washington, and Utah. So all across the country, which makes it just as fun.
Last year, Clemson played in Gainesville, Florida. This year, of course, they'll be hoping to not just get in, but avoid that first round play-in. And let's go ahead and break things down for you further. Let's talk about the top 16, because the race for the top 16 is something that many teams are pining after, and 2 of them in the ACC. Stanford on the right side, NC State on the wrong side, but still a few weeks to change.
Yeah, the top 16 is a big deal because that's your national seeds right there. And that's the spot that you want to be where you're comfortable in. So these teams are really trying to reach that, but we can see these ACC teams in there, which again, talk about elevating each year. We've seen them really be competitive, so that's cool.
And something that Coach Smith for Clemson has been harping on is staying on the right side of the top 30. Top 28 get that first round bye, and of course the selection show coming up in just under a month. But what is the ultimate importance of avoiding that play-in round that Clemson had to play in last season?
When you have to play in, that's adding an entire extra meet. So that's tiring, you're traveling, that's hard on your body. So these athletes really have to be focused for a longer amount of time and have to compete at such a high level for an entire competition. So that's just adding more to their plate, and so they want to avoid that if necessary.
Well, the Tigers will see number 25 Penn State in each of the next 2 weeks. We are so ready for that race to Fort Worth. Meanwhile, we'll be back with an exciting rotation 4 as Bree Clark will compete the Biles next. 50th anniversary of women's sports here at Clemson. Some big news as the Women Expansion Project continues. We talked about this a couple weeks ago, Sydney. It is fascinating to see the new digs that Clemson gymnastics, lacrosse, and all of the sports will be able to recover in with that $37 million price tag.
It's just so insane and cool to see just the access that these athletes have to these facilities. It's honestly incredible and just looks so nice to see, again, all the support that they get.
Meanwhile, on this important day, we've got the Clemson president, Jim Clements, here in the house, cheering on these Tigers. And I'm sure he'll make the stroll across the street to Doug Kingsmore to take on that Clemson-South Carolina rivalry. You know, when I first got here and started doing work here, they told me I wasn't even allowed to say the words South Carolina on the broadcast, even though that's the state we're in.
I believe it, and I think we were joking earlier that everyone's going to go to the gymnastics meet and they're just going to walk across the street and go to the baseball game. So it works out. A perfect Friday night if you're a student here or a Clemson fan.
Yeah, any way, anyhow, you can get a triple header starting with softball, then gymnastics. You can make it work if you're a fan and you wanted to try to catch all 3. We're getting word that it is a full sellout over at DKS for that baseball game at 7 o'clock. The timing should be perfect as our final rotation is set to begin in just about 1 minute. And so let's go over a couple of the nerd numbers, because Clemson, of course, targeting 196, which would be higher than their NQS. It would be their 3rd highest score of the season. In order to do that, they need a 49.25 on floor. Now, we put that into perspective. They had a season high on floor on Sunday, a 49.3. So if they can produce that again, it would get them over the 196 mark.
Yeah, this is a really exciting type of last rotation we're going to see. It's definitely doable for Clemson. They've got the gymnastics for it. They've got the execution for it. It's just going to be putting it together and really honing in on those controlled landings. Now, they're capable of a 49.3 plus, and we saw great warm-ups, great touches right here. So let's see if they can capitalize on it and get that season high.
Lily Lippett, who has led off each of the last 2 apparatuses, will once again kick things off for Clemson. Now, she had a tough outing on Sunday against Stanford. Everyone had a terrific score, but Lippitt started with a 9.675. That's got to give her some motivation to kick off tonight on floor with an emphasis.
Yeah, and we've seen her just so consistent across the board tonight. So I think she's going to have that extra energy, that extra oomph tonight, and is just going to be a great leadoff spot for this Clemson team here.
And then in the anchor position, Bree Clark. What she will be doing will be historic. Just the second time that a college gymnast has attempted the Biles 1, and it was her on opening day in Oklahoma.
Oh yeah, definitely something we've been looking forward to all night. We'll talk more about it when she's up on floor, but until then, we can just sit back and enjoy this last rotation.
So Lily Lippitt takes the floor.
Getting ready for this first tumbling pass here. She does a huge double back. Had so much power, she did step out of bounds. So that'll be deducted at the end of the routine, but that's a really good problem to have.
So every gymnast on Clemson will throw up the twos, the deuces, to represent this team too.
Yeah, that's something that's so fun. I loved when Coach Smith told us about the meaning and the significance behind that. Kind of throwing in those nuggets throughout each gymnast floor routine. Could see it right there in front of us.
Wow. Elena Reed gives way to Bailey Upton over on vault.
I really like that, your Yurchenko full. Nice height on that, and just had the smallest little shift in her feet on that landing as well.
Summer Simpkins over on bars, her first competition here tonight.
So far, she's moving through this routine. Did that release move from the low bar up to the high bar. Looks a little bit rushed throughout. It's really important on every event, but especially bars, to have that rhythm and that timing. You don't want to be too ahead of yourself, but also not too behind either. So nice routine for New Hampshire.
Reed with a 9.8, the leadoff for Texas Women's University. As Maggie Holman gets set right in front of us, the main event. Holman, a sophomore from North Carolina, also had a 9.625 against Stanford. So a couple chips on the shoulder for Clemson on floor to start, as Bailey Upton with a 9.775. Here's Steely King.
We saw that Yurchenko full again, had a little bit of pike down on that landing, so that'll be the deduction along with that hop back that she had. Looked like she was right on that white line, but was able to keep it in. Again, the judge's angle is different from our angle, so they may have seen a little bit more than us from behind.
So now the stage is set for Holman. Lippitt's score 9.75.
Curious to see if that was a 9.75 with that deduction out of bounds, or the judges, usually you see their hand go up if they go out of bounds. So we will see, but starts out with that front double full. One of my favorite passes to watch from her, because she's so consistent with that landing every time. She does that switch side to straddle full as well for that leap combination.
Trinity Caffey on vault now.
Really nice Yurchenko full. Hate that she had that step forward, because I loved the amplitude and the block she got off of the table to just set and drop right into that landing. Beautiful vault there. for Texas women's. Getting ready for this next tumbling pass here. It's gonna be that Rudy to that back layout, step out, beautifully done. And that's gonna be a good score for Clemson there. Love that last pass to finish it off.
Meanwhile, Julia before finishes up on bars for New Hampshire. Sophia Isbell will take a run on vault, and Leah Moreno on bars. Here is Moreno. Check that, this is Isbell.
Getting ready for that. Yurchenko full, and she's able to hold on to the stick. They've done a great job with those landings and that attention to detail. You can see they're pumped about it, but really impressive vaults that we're seeing from them tonight.
Now, Texas women's had their highest NQS in program history last year, 195.575. So they are not just competing against Clemson and New Hampshire, they are trying to get that NQS higher, which sits currently at 194.475. So they got a lot of work to do. But it has certainly been a tremendous vault routine for the Pioneers out of Denton, Texas, as Madison Minner takes center stage. The redshirt junior from Anderson with 5 straight 9/8s or higher on floor.
Yeah, this is a fun floor routine to watch too with the choreography. She's also someone that has just been so consistent on this event. I've loved getting to watch her all season. She starts out with that front double fold that we've seen. Talk about that blind landing. But try doing 2 twists in front of it. It's really difficult.
Meanwhile, it's the All-American performance now from Caitlin Hoyland on vault.
Really big 1.5. I love the height and the block she got. A little bit of form throughout, especially at the end there, so that's gonna be a deduction along with that step, but again, that 1.5 is that 10-0 start value, so that's gonna be one of their higher scores there.
So that'll round out vault as a stick from Moreno. You competed with her at club.
I did compete club gymnastics with her. Really cool to see her compete on a couple of events tonight, and like we just saw, that stick on that double tuck bar dismount. She also finishes with that Rudy, which is that front 1.5 punch back layout step out. In my opinion, one of the prettiest, I would say, tumbling passes that you could do when you just rise up in the air and you're able to get that huge bounce. So they've both done a great job, her and Maggie Holman, being able to control that last pass there.
So the Tigers are halfway through their final rotation, and these last 3 are truly gems. Molly Arnold, who is all ACC on the floor last season, she's got a season high of 9.9. That came a few days ago. Eve Jackson just had a colossal 9.95 on Sunday. And of course, Bree Clark is always on 10 watch, which would be the program's first.
I'm excited to watch these next couple athletes because they have so much potential, and we've seen it throughout the season, how good of scores they've gotten, but also how great their gymnastics is, and it's so much fun to watch. So I'm looking forward to seeing what they can do. Seems like the crowd's really into it tonight. I feel like each routine, they're getting louder and louder. So that's got to give them a boost of energy there.
Here is the assumed all-around event winner today in Serena Mullen on bars.
We saw that release move combination there. Chaposh up to the high bar and shoot over down to the low bar. Gearing up for her dismount. Almost had that stick. Nice distance on that double tuck with the full twist there. Getting ready on floor for her first tumbling run here. It's a huge fall in. she's able to minimize that lunge there. So you are allowed to take that small lunge. It's if it's too big, the judges can take half a tenth or a tenth on it, but she had no problems on that one there. Next tumbling run here. A 2.5 to the punch front tuck. Now, this is if we're being picky, but it looked like she had to pull that 2.5 around, but she made it so that it was not very noticeable because we saw her do some phenomenal ones in warm-up. Looked like she ran out of juice a little bit, but still pulled that front tuck, pulled it out. So really nicely done there.
See the face.
Yeah, she knows it. Really nice job, though. It's almost like from the judge's angle, you don't know what they can see and what they can't see. So that's what you train for right there.
And she finished with the salute here on Military Appreciation Night.
Love that.
Zoe Arthur, sophomore from California, on bars as this meet comes to a close for Texas women's. They finish with a 193.975, a little under their season average.
It is really impressive for these other teams, too, to come into such a big environment with a huge home crowd for Clemson and being able to stay calm in this setting and still perform at this high level. Again, props to them because it is difficult.
And I was going to say, there is nothing comparable amongst other sports to the atmosphere waiting for these next two gymnasts. And Eve Jackson, coming off the 9.95, takes the floor.
We're going to see some really big gymnastics in Eve Jackson and Bree Clark, but take a look here at this first pass. It's going to be a full out there. So she doesn't twist like most gymnasts do on the first tuck, but she does it on the second, which is so difficult, and it's something to point out.
Coach Smith said that her first pass is unworldly. Love that quote.
It's so good, and it's so fun to watch. She's spot on, too, week in and week out.
9-7 comes in for Arnold. Clemson hoping to discount that score.
And that 9-7, the deduction may have been in that last pass that we talked about. Next tumbling pass here, she does a front tuck through to a double tuck. Wow. Lands it, makes it look way too easy because she had so much height throughout that entire tumbling pass right there. What a beautiful floor routine. Ends with the 2, and that's like a mic drop right there for her. That's going to be a big score for Clemson.
I love that little ESPN bottom line ding as Zoe Arthur on bars.
She starts off, love that handstand on top of the bar. Excuse me, to end with the handstand on top of the bar, even better. And then drops into that double tuck dismount there. Nicely done.
So the stage is now clear for the last two gymnasts. Anya Reed, the phenom freshman on bars for New Hampshire, but all eyes in Littlejohn. Probably about 5,000 eyes will be set on Bree Clark, the redshirt junior out of Alabama, who will be doing the Biles 1, the double layout with a half twist. Now walk us through exactly the difficulty and what makes it special and why no other gymnast competes with it.
Yeah, this is the routine that we've been waiting for, but the first tumbling pass, it's gonna be a double layout with a half twist, and it is called the Biles 1. Nobody else in college does it or has done it besides her earlier on this season. So I think this is a sit back and just watch right here.
Jackson comes in with that 9.875.
Getting ready to go. Here she goes. And she's able to land it. Wow. What an accomplishment to just even say you did the Biles and competed it. I was taken back. I was watching it. I think she stepped out of bounds, though. Did she? Because I was too in awe of watching the skill. I wasn't even paying attention to the lines there. But you know what? When you're in an environment like this and you just are so amped up for something like this, you're going to have a lot of power going into that. Over on bars, we saw that nice Ginger release move down to that overshoot. Back on floor. Wow, love that she was able to stick that tumbling pass. That was 3 combination skills in a row. Beautiful routine. She's got to be so proud and excited about that. And the crowd's going crazy in here. Again, she did step out of bounds, but that does not take away from that awesome routine there. I mean, she's making history doing that.
Goosebumps from the atmosphere here in Little John as Bree Clark. Now, nevertheless, it's on the first pass, which I don't think people necessarily understand the nerves and the ability to then move on past that.
Right.
You then have to finish your entire floor routine.
Yeah, it's like, hey, no pressure. You're gonna do this crazy hard first tumbling pass, but then you have to do the rest of the routine after.
So we will await that Bree Clark final score to see if Clemson can get the 49.250 needed. If you're doing the math quickly, it needs.
I think it would be pretty tough to get that because right now
it needs to be a 9.95, yeah.
Yeah, and when stepping out of bounds, she won't be able to get that 9.95.
Nevertheless, our all-around performer today with that final all-around score of 37.925 is Serena Mullen, one of 2 who competed the all-around. Second is Elena Reed. Our vault winners are Minner and Walsh. On beam, the winner, Hannah Clark. Check that on bars. On beam, it was Bree Clark. And Clark finishes with that 9.8. So Clemson does get above the 49 mark and finishes this meet at just a shy under 196. So the Tigers will continue striving towards excellence and a chance at the night session of the ACC Championship. So there are our final scores on the bottom right, and we thank you so much for joining us here on this Dry Meat Friday. Some history made in Little John. For our entire crew and Sydney Sneed, I'm Daniel Gilman saying so long. Enjoy your weekend, and Clemson will be back in a few weeks on Senior Day.